Section 10.6, more solving absolute value inequalities. Well, it's really not that much more. The stuff inside the absolute value is getting a little more complex, a little more sophisticated. Also, we're going to talk about what you do when there's stuff outside of the absolute value, when you're solving inequalities and equations. And the key here is to get the absolute value by itself. Okay, so you want to peel off all the stuff around the absolute value, put it on the other side just so you isolate the absolute value, and then write your two equations or your two inequalities. We'll talk about that as we get there, but let's look at this first example. It's pretty easy. It's pretty straightforward. I'm going to move this up here because what I want to do is I want to give myself more room to write my two equations. All right, I know it's an equation because it has an equal sign. Hate to point that out to you, but I know some people go, huh? But here we go. Remember, the stuff inside here, if it equals 7, that's good. If it equals -7, that's good. So we just write two equations, okay? 2p minus 3 equals 7, and 2p minus 3 equals -7. Solve it. You're going to find two possibilities for p, okay? Add 3 to both sides here. I'm going to get 2p is equal to 10, divide by 2, and p is equal to 5. Done. That's one of them, okay? Now the other one, add 3 to both sides. 2p is equal to -4, divide by 2, and p can equal -2. All right? These are the two things that p can equal that will make this stuff equal -7 or 7, which makes the absolute value equal +7. Done. That easy. Okay? Now let's look at the next one. Example number 2, it says solve the absolute value of 10 minus 2k is greater than or equal to 6 and graph its solution set. Now remember yesterday, we talked about this, right? When it's a greater than symbol with the absolute value, it's going to be an or statement. Okay? It's going to be a disjunction. Okay, right? All right, that tips us off right there. But let's rewrite the inequality, and then we'll solve the whole thing. We'll solve the two inequalities, and then we'll graph them. Okay, so let me rewrite. Absolute value 10 minus 2k is greater than or equal to 6. All right. Now I'm ready to write my two inequalities. All right. 10 minus 2k is greater than or equal to 6. And then remember, when I change the sign of this thing, I need to flip the inequality also. All right. So 10 minus 2k is less than or equal to -6. All right. Now let's solve. I'm going to subtract 10 from both sides to get rid of it. Okay, so that's going to give me -2k is greater than or equal to -4. Okay. Then I'm going to divide by -2 on both sides. I'm dividing by a negative on both sides. Well, that means I need to flip the inequality, and I'm going to get +2. So k is less than or equal to +2. Let's see what happens over here. Subtract 10 from both sides. That's going to give me -2k is less than or equal to -16. Then I'm going to divide by -2 on both sides. Dividing by a negative on both sides means I need to flip the inequality, and that k is greater than or equal to +8. All right? Now, let's graph this and see what we get. My two critical numbers are 2, I'll put that here because it's the smaller one, and 8. Put that one here because it's the bigger one. Okay? I'm going to put circles around them. And remember, since it can be equal to, I'm going to shade that circle in. And it says k is less than 2. Going off onto the left. Over here, k can equal 8 or be greater than 8. Going off to the right. So you can see it is a disjunction. All right? Because it said the distance has to be greater than or equal to 6. All right? Piece of cake. Piece of cake. You guys know how to do this. This is some easy stuff. Okay? Let's look at the next one. All right? Now, excuse me. This is what I was talking about earlier. Okay? That we've got this absolute value, but it's kind of buried in this inequality. because I've got stuff outside of it. So the thing I have to do is I have to isolate the absolute value just like I would isolate a variable, okay? So the first thing I want to do is let's subtract 21 from both sides, okay? Now, when I do that, I'm going to get negative 4 times the absolute value of 2 minus 5w is, let's see, greater than negative 8. When I put those two things together, I get negative 8. Now, first off, I'm thinking, wait a minute, I got absolute value of negative 8. Yeah, that's true. But remember, what you're saying is I can't have an absolute value that's negative, but I'm not done yet. Because you see, I need to divide this side by negative 4 and this side by negative 4. Okay? Because I got to get rid of the stuff outside the absolute value. This cancels. And now I'm going to get, now remember, I'm dividing by a negative. The absolute value of 2 minus 5w is less than positive 2. All right. Absolute value is positive. That's good. I divided by a negative on both sides, so I flip the inequality. I've got the absolute value by itself. That's good. Needed to do that. Also, since it's less than, I know it's going to be an and statement, right? Or a conjunction. When I graph it, I know it's going to be between the two critical points. But let's make sure. See that we don't make any mistakes. All right? Let me write my now that I've isolated the absolute value, I'm ready to write my two inequalities. 2 minus 5w is less than 2. Or and. Let's make sure, right? It's supposed to be an and. Let's make sure we didn't make any mistakes. 2 minus 5w is greater than negative 2. Okay? First thing I'm going to do, subtract 2. Subtract 2, negative 5w is less than 0. And I don't know why it is, but some of you go, oh my gosh, there's no solution. Please don't do that. Keep going. I can divide 0 by a number. I can't divide a number by 0. You need to get that straight. Okay? I'm dividing by negative 5. That becomes positive. The 5's cancel. It leaves me with w. But remember, I divided by negative 5, so I've got to flip the inequality. And 0 divided by negative 5 is 0. Not no solution. Okay? Over here, subtract 2 from both sides, and I'm going to get negative 5w is greater than negative 4 when I put those two things together. Then I'm going to divide by negative 5 on both sides. Did you say divide by negative? Yes, I did. That means I need to flip the inequality, and it's going to be positive 4/5. Okay? Now, let's graph it. We know it, we expect it to be a conjunction because the absolute value was less than a number. All right? So let's go ahead and draw my number line. I've got two critical numbers. The smallest is 0, so I'm going to put it there. The biggest is 4/5, so I'm going to put it there. I'm going to put circles around them, but I'm leaving those circles empty because it did not say it could be equal to it. All right? Now, it's got to be greater than 0, so that means I shade to the right of 0. And it has to be less than 4/5, so I shade to the left of 4/5. Okay? And it was a conjunction, just like we said it would be, just like we expected it to be. All right? Nice. Good work. Okay? Remember, isolate the absolute value before you begin solving it. All right? Great job, guys. You're ready. Go for it.